Hello, my unremarkable friends, and welcome to the next chapter of The Unremarkable Entrepreneur. It's the book I'm writing week by week over the next year for all the practitioners, artists, and creators who've realized they don't need another playbook. They need to find their own path. As you can see, we've had a bit of a change of scene, so forgive the mess behind me, but let's dive right in. This is I Forgive, Therefore I Am. In one hand, I held my calling to be an evangelist. In the other, my professional plan to become a police officer. And before me was a former police officer turned evangelist speaking at a Christian youth festival. I asked him how he'd balanced the calling with the profession. His response: forget the profession, explore the call. He made it irresistible, asking me to join the gap year program of the charity he represented, after which I'd become his apprentice and we would travel and preach together. The prophecy was being fulfilled. Of course, I accepted. 6 months into that year, the charity asked me to rise again. They called me and said, "Dan, we need an evangelist." The mission was to serve at a major theme park to help lead a sort of interactive Christian art space. Honestly, I'm not going to waste any words on trying to make sense of how weird this project was. What I do want to share are the living conditions. The charity rented a small house for me and a small team. Every room was filthy, full of damp and mold. The owner threatened us with violence if we ever opened the dining room door. It was a putrid hovel next to a drug trafficking hotspot with a queue of users waiting at the door. Bear in mind that I was paying to participate in this gap year, and someone from the charity had viewed the house and deemed it appropriate for 3 young men. As you can imagine, I had things to say. Their response: we live by faith, and this is sometimes what it looks like. You're a man of faith, aren't you, Dan? Of course I was, so I remained on the front line. After all, I would soon take my place as a traveling evangelist. But that didn't happen. The policeman turned preacher decided to leave the organization, and my opportunity left with him. That summer, I returned to the same festival. The charity had appointed a new leader who wanted to meet me. Looking back, I realized he was only a few years older than me, but he was a giant of faith in my eyes. He expressed regret about how I'd been left in limbo and apologized that I'd been convinced to participate in what was now widely regarded as a failed experiment. He knew my story, he knew my calling, he knew what I'd endured, and he made me an offer. I was to join him as his apprentice so we could travel and preach together. There was one condition: serve on the gap year program for another year. I'll never forget what he said. You need to earn your stripes, Dan. After 6 months, all communication ceased. After another 5, I finally got a call. He told me I had earned my stripes. He also told me that he was too busy to take on an apprentice. I needed a new plan, and I had 4 weeks to find one. Man of faith, earn your stripes. We need an evangelist. These are the words of the isolation economy wearing a crucifix. They had stories to craft, money to raise, and a bottom line to satisfy. So they used God-shaped language to guide my emotional response and keep a young man compliant and available. They didn't provoke my pain, but they still leveraged the longing of the heart. For the next few years, I tried to make the calling stick. I became a youth ministry intern, led a small community church, and continued to live by faith. I slid into loneliness and debt, eventually moving home and crying in a pub garden with my dad. He bailed me out. I landed a youth ministry job in Cambridge and spent the next 4 years serving the work and paying him back. As a 43-year-old, I spend more time in this story than I'd care to admit. And revisiting it reveals a measure of bitterness I still find hard to process. Yes, I write from the rubble. My scars are symbols. Without them, I'd have nothing to say. And that is why this chapter is harder to write than most. Because scars are symbols is true, and the bitterness remains. Pain and purpose fighting for the same space. You felt this too, not just the wound, but the paradox of it. Something that shaped you and still makes you quietly furious. The weaponized performance review, the mentor who moved the goalposts, the leader who claimed their applause based on your work, the promotion that was promised but never honored, the person who saw your longing and used it for their gain. The world tells you your scars make you stronger, and it's true. You can be a better boss, a kinder friend, a more emotive artist because of what you've survived. But turning your wounds into symbols isn't an act of sheer will, it's a daily decision of the heart. Otherwise, your work amplifies your wounds instead of who you are. When your work is an extension of what you lack or the wounds you bear, no amount of effort will bring you meaning. Your output doesn't balance the ledger or determine your value. It never has. One day, the youth charity leader came to speak in Cambridge. I was there but couldn't face him and left early. Years later, our paths crossed again. In my search for peace, I'd convinced myself that I should apologize for any bitterness I'd held against him and the organization. So I waited for a conversation. As he approached me, I was stunned by what he said. "Oh, you've decided not to be rude this time, have you?" In the years since, his star has risen and his influence grown. He leads an international charity, writes books, speaks at conferences, and shapes minds. Me? I went on to experience 5 redundancies in a decade, and even today, find it hard to shake the feeling that I'm a failure. The one who doesn't have enough faith, who's always too late, and now too old. Bitterness, all too easy to find if I cared to look. Though those feelings often feel true, the oboe's A invites me to notice a different reality. I've met and worked with people whose stories I understand because of what I've lived through, and slowly, forgiveness has been gaining ground on the bitterness that loves to run the show and direct my actions. Looking back, I didn't need to seek forgiveness. I needed to forgive. To this day, it remains the only thing I can control. Forgiveness isn't a one-time thing, it's a posture, a daily decision of the heart, and it's required right now. Forgive the employer who didn't honor you. Forgive the coach who didn't help you. Forgive yourself for not knowing enough, for not acting enough, for not being wise enough. Forgive yourself for the bitterness you cling to today and the narrative walls you choose to live within. And forgive the system that exploited your longing. If you spent time, money, and faithfulness in pursuit of an outcome that didn't arrive, forgive the other person's role in it, and forgive yourself for choosing it. I'm not just saying let it go. You're right, you didn't get what you deserved. But whilst your mind wants to fight for it, your heart longs to put it down. When you don't, you lose. If I hadn't believed that I was too late in my younger years, I could have gone back to school or trained as a police officer. I could have returned to my cleaning job where I felt content and useful. When I started my business, I could have focused on relationships instead of forcing a sense of scale and parading my success stories in front of others. But I didn't. Not because I didn't know enough, not because I wasn't aware of my options, but because I hadn't yet realized that the founder's noose was feeding on my lust for what's fair, pushing me towards getting what I deserved. No amount of work could release me from that hunger. Only forgiveness could do that. Today, you might feel trapped by the walls of your story, but you haven't missed it. You're not too old, too late, or too irrelevant. A calling isn't a destination you miss, it's a direction of travel that starts right where you're standing. It's found in the rubble of the walls by those who choose to tear them down. The question is whether you choose to continue the story or write the sequel by forgiving yourself and those who hurt you. You've heard it said, "I think, therefore I am." But my mind wants to show them how stupid they were for letting me go. My mind wants to become famous so they can experience the shadow of my wisdom. My mind wants to win, and it overrides the wisdom of my heart every day. In other words, what I think is not a reliable steward of what my soul needs and what my best work requires. So instead, I say this: I forgive, therefore I am. Forgiveness isn't about feeling better, though you will. It's about accepting that none of us can undo what's been done and choosing to tear down the wall between who you are and who the work needs you to become. It's the daily decision to stop keeping score, to resist the temptation to live according to what we've lost and how we've been mistreated. It's the only thing we can control. Without it, bitterness remains on standby, ready to flood the space where forgiveness should be, ready to do our thinking for us, driving the desire to win, to overwhelm the past, and finally take what we deserve. Being unable to forgive, or not realizing that you could, is the silent curse that manipulates your message, compromises your content, and makes you a target of the isolation economy, forcing you to outperform your past, the system that made you feel alone, and the people who caused your pain. They are your competition, and your job is to beat them. It's the reason you remain at the center of your story, asking, "How do I get seen?" versus, "How can I see others?" For me, it makes me think I need reach when I simply need relationships, to revel in the abundance of one instead of the dopamine hit of a social graph moving up and to the right. Honestly, I'm not some Zen master writing from a position of inner peace, nor have I satisfied my programming for success. Some days I've forgiven the people who wounded me, and some days I haven't. But I know the days when I feel content, when I feel like I count, when I write with a fire in my heart instead of a chip on my shoulder. On those days, the walls of these stories don't exist, and so I aim for more of those. And ultimately, the actions of old enemies were just expressions of the system they were stuck into. If there were justice to seek, how would I ever find it? In the end, the deepest, truest, most magnetic version of your story isn't found in victory. So today, don't try to win. Don't try to be seen. Operate from something new: forgiveness. A practice note before we finish. One action to carry into this week. When a troubling memory replays without permission, or when you feel diminished or jealous because of someone else's success, note it down and remember that's not your story. With a deep breath, say or whisper aloud this short mantra: I forgive, therefore I am. That was I forgive, therefore I am. If you want to read the text at your own pace or follow along as the rest of the book emerges, you can find the link in the notes below. If this resonated, it really is being written for you. Thank you for sharing this space with me today. I'll save you a seat in the next chapter.